We are taught from the beginning of life to hold on. Hold on to the people we love, to the dreams we chase, to the identity we build, and even to the pain that has already outlived its purpose. Letting go, by contrast, feels unnatural, almost like failure, almost like surrender. Somewhere deep inside, we equate holding tightly with strength and releasing with weakness. But what if the opposite is true? What if the greatest power you will ever discover is not in clinging but in opening your hand, loosening your grip, and trusting life enough to let go? Think of the times you've been unable to release. Clinging to a relationship that drained you, replaying a mistake that no amount of regret could undo, or holding yourself hostage to a version of your life that no longer fit who you were becoming. In those moments, you weren't growing, you were stuck, trapped in a cycle where holding on only deepened the wound. Yet the moment you finally released, whether by choice or by force, something shifted. The silence that followed was painful at first, but then it became spacious. Within that space, you began to breathe again, to see again, to feel the possibility of something new. That is the hidden power of letting go. It creates the room for transformation. Psychology has long shown that our attachment systems are wired for survival. We cling because it feels safe. Our brains are built to seek familiarity, even when the familiar is hurting us. But growth demands disruption. Just as muscles only strengthen when they are broken down and rebuilt, the human spirit only expands when it is willing to release what no longer serves it. Letting go is not about abandonment or denial. It is about aligning with the truth that life is movement, and you cannot step forward while your feet remain chained to the past. This is why letting go is an act of courage. It takes strength to forgive someone who never apologized. It takes strength to close a chapter that once defined your identity. It takes strength to admit that you have outgrown a place, a person, or even an old version of yourself. And the remarkable paradox is this: what feels like loss is actually liberation. The moment you release, you are not left empty, you are left open. Open to growth, open to peace, open to the possibilities that were always waiting beyond the walls of your grip. So when we talk about power and letting go, we are not speaking of weakness or resignation. We are speaking of the raw, untamed strength it takes to trust the unknown more than the comfort of what is familiar. Letting go is not giving up, is stepping up. It is declaring to yourself that your life is too valuable to be weighed down by what no longer belongs. It is reclaiming the energy that was wasted on the past and redirecting it toward the future that is still waiting for you. And that is why release, though it feels like the hardest step, becomes your greatest strength. We cling because we are human, and to be human is to crave safety. From infancy, our survival depended on holding tightly to our caregivers, on depending on their presence for warmth, nourishment, and comfort. Our nervous systems were designed around attachment, hardwired to seek closeness and fear abandonment. And though we grow, that primal coding never truly disappears. Instead, it shifts into adulthood in subtler ways, holding on to relationships, careers, identities, or memories, long after they have stopped nourishing us. Letting go feels like standing at the edge of a cliff with no bridge in sight, even when what we are clinging to is burning us from the inside out. But here's the deeper truth. Holding on is often the illusion of safety, not the reality of it. Psychology calls this the familiarity bias, our tendency to stay in known patterns even if they harm us, simply because they are predictable. A toxic relationship may leave us anxious and drained, but it is still familiar. A job that suffocates us may keep us miserable, but it also keeps us secure. The familiar becomes a cage we decorate with excuses, telling ourselves we cannot leave, while our spirit quietly whispers that we are meant for more. That whisper, though faint, is the beginning of strength. For strength does not always roar, it often begins as a small voice urging us to step away from the very thing we think we cannot live without. Letting go is not about forgetting or erasing. It is about choosing not to be defined by what has already passed. The pain will still exist, the memories will still live within you, but the chains that kept you bound to them dissolve the moment you accept that they no longer control your present. Consider grief. To lose someone we love feels unbearable, and the idea of letting go of that attachment feels like betrayal. But grief is not about letting go of love, it is about letting go of the idea that love can only exist in physical presence. True letting go honors what was while allowing you to keep living. It shifts love from a desperate clinging to an eternal part of your being. And in that way, even grief becomes a form of strength, not because you have forgotten, but because you have carried forward what cannot be lost. The same principle applies to the stories we tell about ourselves. Many of us cling to identities that once served us but no longer do. Perhaps you were always the responsible one, the achiever, the caretaker. And perhaps those roles shaped your past in meaningful ways. But when you cling to them as fixed definitions, you close yourself off to the evolution your life is calling you toward. The truth is, you are allowed to shed old skins. You are allowed to grow out of versions of yourself, just as a tree sheds its leaves when the season turns. Letting go of outdated identities is not losing yourself, it is making space to meet who you are becoming. Yet, if we know letting go is powerful, why do we resist it so fiercely? Psychology reveals that much of our resistance is rooted in fear of the unknown. fear of emptiness, fear that without what we cling to we will collapse. But strength is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move despite it. When you let go, you are not promising that the path will be easy, only that it will be real. And what is real has the power to heal. Imagine a clenched fist. As long as it remains closed, it cannot hold anything new. It can only grip tighter until the muscles ache. But when the hand opens, it feels vulnerable, exposed, and yet it is only then that it can receive. Letting go is the opening of your hand, the release of what weighs you down, so that life can place something new within your grasp. This is not weakness, this is trust. Trust in life, trust in yourself, trust that what is meant to stay will stay, and what must leave was never meant to be chained. This is where the power begins to reveal itself. Think of the countless people who stepped into greatness only after release, the artist who abandoned the career path that suffocated them, the individual who walked away from a relationship that diminished their worth, the dreamer who stopped replaying past failures and finally dared to begin again. Their strength was not in clinging to what was, but in stepping into the unknown. And the irony is this: the very thing we fear that we will break without what we cling to becomes the very thing that sets us free. Letting go is also a reclaiming of energy. Think of how much mental, emotional, and even physical space is consumed by holding on, ruminating about the past, replaying what was said, clinging to regret, feeding the illusion that things could have been different. That energy, once released, becomes fuel for creation. The mind that was once a prison becomes fertile ground. The heart that was once heavy becomes light enough to dream again. The spirit that was once bound discovers that the chains were never unbreakable, they were only as strong as the fear that sustained them. And what of the self-doubt that so often accompanies letting go? What if I regret it? What if I fail? What if I can't handle the emptiness? These questions are the mind's last defense against change. But ask yourself instead, what if you succeed? What if releasing brings peace? What if the emptiness you fear is not emptiness at all, but space for growth, space for love, space for the life you were meant to live? The questions you ask shape the courage you summon. By shifting the question, you shift the path. Letting go then is not just a single act, it is a practice. It is choosing, again and again, not to be defined by what you have lost, but by how you rise. It is reminding yourself, in every moment of fear, that surrender is not defeat. It is remembering that every ending is, by nature, also a beginning. And it is trusting that life is not a static picture, but a moving river, always carrying you toward new shores. To master the power of letting go is to live in harmony with that river. It is to stop fighting the current and instead trust its direction. Yes, there will be rocks along the way. Yes, there will be storms. But the river knows where it is flowing, and your only task is to stop gripping the branches on the bank that cut your hands and stunt your journey. Strength is not found in resistance, it is found in release. And perhaps the greatest gift of all is this: when you let go, you rediscover yourself. Beneath the attachments, the fears, the stories, there is a self that has always been whole, always been capable, always been free. That self is not lost, it has simply been buried beneath what you refuse to release. The moment you let go, that self begins to rise again, like light breaking through clouds. So here's the truth that so many overlook. Letting go is not the end of your story, it is the turning of the page. It is not weakness, but wisdom. It is not a sign that you have failed, but evidence that you are courageous enough to walk away from what no longer serves your spirit. When you release, you are not giving up, you are giving yourself permission to step into the life that has been waiting for you beyond the weight of your grip. The mind may resist this truth. It will whisper that clinging is safer, that comfort, even painful comfort, is better than uncertainty. But you are not meant to spend your life clutching broken pieces hoping they will form something whole. You are meant to take the lessons those pieces gave you, set them down gently, and step forward with open hands ready to receive what comes next. The act of release is not the death of love, identity, or hope. It is the rebirth of them in a form that aligns with who you are becoming. Look at the seasons. The trees do not cling to their leaves when autumn comes. They release them freely, not because they do not value them, but because they understand that release is part of growth. Winter arrives, cold and bare, and yet the tree trusts that spring will return with new life. You too are part of this rhythm. You are not meant to remain bound to what was. You are meant to trust the seasons of your own becoming, and in that trust, you will find the strength to let go. The power in letting go is that it does not leave you powerless, it leaves you lighter. It frees your hands, your mind, and your heart to carry only what was meant for you. It allows you to walk without dragging chains of regret or clinging to people and places that belong to chapters already closed. It is in this space of release that you discover your true capacity for resilience, for healing, for creation. You realize that what you once thought would destroy you has in fact shaped you into someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more alive. So if you are standing at the edge of release, afraid of what will happen if you let go, remember this: the unknown is not your enemy, it is your invitation. Beyond your grip lies the possibility of peace. Beyond your fear lies the gift of transformation. And beyond the act of letting go lies the discovery that you were never defined by what you clung to, but by the courage you found when you chose to set it free. Let this be your moment to open your hands, your heart, your mind. Let this be the moment you trust yourself enough to release what no longer belongs. The power you seek is not in holding tighter, it is in loosening your grip and allowing life to move you forward. For in the end, the greatest strength you will ever know is not in how fiercely you cling, but in how bravely you let go.